Hear ye, hear ye. I will make a prediction in this video that will be proven correct in perpetuity. It is a prediction about what the US government will never again do regarding the subject of UAP. And to set myself up for this grandiose prediction, I'll provide you a clip from a recent interview by Mick West with guest Zach Seichi of Project Human Podcast.
In the past, what they've done.
Zach is referring to the government's handling of the UAP issue in the past.
Is they have thrown cold water on this issue. Anytime it's come up in the public sphere, anytime people have had questions about Roswell, the government ultimately issues something along the lines of nothing to see here. It's not aliens. This is not what you think it is. This is a glitch. This is blah, 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 right? And what we've had for the last several years is this is now taking on a different tone. It's now taking on this tone of, actually, we're not saying it's not aliens anymore. We're not doing that. We're actually going to just be extremely vague.
I will provide you two concrete examples from the past where an entity of the United States government has been anything but vague regarding what they were willing to say regarding the existence of UAP. The following is an excerpt from an article I wrote with Bryce Sable, at least the draft of that article. And this underscores what the United States Air Force was willing to say back when Project Blue Book closed. And I'll read it word for word. The United States Air Force has used the fact sheet since abandoning Blue Book back in 1969 when asked about UFOs. It states that the U.S. government will no longer be investigating unidentified flying objects for the following reasons. No UFO reported, investigated, and evaluated by the Air Force has ever given any indication of threat to our national security. There has been no evidence submitted to or discovered by the Air Force that sightings categorized as unidentified represent technological developments or principles beyond the range of present-day scientific knowledge. There has been no evidence indicating the sightings categorized as unidentified or extraterrestrial vehicles. But wait, there's more. Here's a Washington Post article that was published on November 7th, 2011, titled, "White House Denies Aliens Exist on Earth." And here's an article written the very next day for CNN, titled, "White House, No Contact with Aliens, but We're Looking." And the reason I'm sharing two articles is just to show you that when the White House, for example, makes a proclamation that they don't have a certain kind of evidence, the media takes notice in the same way that all of what has transpired in the last 3 or 4 years has been taken notice of, with proclamations made by Lou Elizondo and Commander David Fravor, and statements made by the administrator of NASA, Bill Nelson, statements made by Senator Martin Heinrich, and so forth. But let's get into what the White House stated in response to a petition in 2011. Quote, "The U.S. government has no evidence that any life exists outside our planet or that an extraterrestrial presence has contacted or engaged any member of the human race," wrote Phil Larson of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy in a blog post on the White House website. And now for the grandiose prediction that I shall make before the earth. Before I do, I want to indulge in a little victory beverage, if you don't mind. Because as far as I'm concerned, my prediction is solid as a rock. Now, my prediction is this. Never again, as we move forward, will an entity of the United States government make any proclamations such as the ones I just shared with you. And the reason they won't do it is because they no longer can get away with such proclamations. And indeed, if they could get away with it, they would have made those proclamations. They would have thrown cold water on the UAP issue. That would be the only responsible thing for the government to do in an environment when all these public figures, senators, former CIA directors, former directors of national intelligence, former President Barack Obama, former head of the ATIP portfolio, and so forth, are making these statements, making their rounds on national television and in mainstream media outlets. Why would the US government allow this to percolate and to escalate without making sentiments like they made at the close of Project Blue Book? Or what the Office of Science and Technology stated in response to a petition in 2011. Delicious. And the reason, in my opinion, is because sadly, they've been lying for decades and they can't get away with it anymore. Nobody is going to make such sentiments or declarations when they know they can't get away with it, because there could be legal repercussions, for one. For two, it would make them look really bad. No one wants to look really bad. In short, the jig is up. From a recent media appearance, I think from last Monday, Elizondo, that's Luis Elizondo, stated the following regarding UFO evidence. What I will say is that one of your previous guests has indicated that there's much more clear video and photographic evidence. He's absolutely correct. I've been privy to some extremely clear evidence, and I'll leave it at that. That's extremely compelling. And I think every time, for me, what is most interesting, every time we think we understand some of the capabilities, we are shown new capabilities that has us really, it's quite a mystery indeed. Here's an article from complex.com published on November 18th, 2021 by Trace William Cohen. Title: Senator speaks out about bipartisan push to set up UFO office for investigation program. We need to know. Here's a quote from that article similar to the previous one I shared. Also, this one is by Luis Elizondo. For nearly a century, the U.S. intelligence community has quietly been studying UAP and their implications for humanity, Elizondo said. During my time in government working this issue, I was privy to videos, photos, and other data that should be made available to the American people. This bipartisan legislation is the catalyst that will get us there. And you wonder why I had the chutzpah to make such a prediction as this. But it's not all fun and games, children. There are actually only two representatives that I know of within the United States government that has downplayed UFOs. And this is over a 4-year period. Now, some might take this and say, aha, see, I told you. They were making a mountain out of a molehill. The data is not as compelling as everyone gives the impression that it is. And my response to that would be, no, that's not what I would consider the most objective analysis. I think the fact that there are two people who have been more conservative in their assessment of the information makes a lot of sense, because I think that even if it's true, which I don't know, but I think it is, even if it's true that the data that the government has and that has been exposed to our members of Congress is really, really compelling, it makes sense that there might be one or two people or even more that would want to downplay it for whatever reason, maybe because they're just not impressed by it. That doesn't mean that those that are not impressed by it have the most objective assessment. It just means that not everyone agrees. Let's dig into that. Representative Ruben Gallego, I hope I pronounced that correctly, who has actually put in some of the initial language for an earlier proposal on creating a new UFO office, is one of the people who has, of two that I know of, has downplayed the data that he's come across.
So I had a hearing regarding this, and one of the things that was very clear about it is that we just don't have enough information. And even the information the Department of Defense has is useless information. It is anecdotal evidence and or even film, whatever it is, but we have no reference points to it. and there is no unified way to actually collect this information. Nobody knows what to do with this information. And so the reason I put this legislation together is because we need to treat this as a real problem set. Not that, maybe these foreign, aliens or out of world aliens are a threat. The problem set is that we don't have enough information to make any decisions. So the way you do that is you actually gather the information so that way you can actually, have some viable actions on it.
So this comment by Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego, who is the chairman of the Intelligence Special Operations Committee, is interesting. And as I just listened to it freshly, in a sense, I do think he's taking a conservative approach to the information, but I think he's also saying that we have no reference point, and what we really need is a way to take all of this data that we've acquired from various sources like the Air Force or the Marines or the Navy and have a way to compare and contrast, which is a situation we don't currently have. And so barring that, it's going to be hard to make a more firm analysis of the data. So my impression is he's saying that we need more data, and when we get more data, we can have more confidence in what we think of the data. Not so much that he's saying that it doesn't amount to anything impressive or significant. That's just my initial take, at least.
Because right now, it's really unfair, I think, for the NASA administrator to speculate that it is, otherworldly objects or aliens, because the data doesn't prove anything like that.
Now, I don't have a problem with what Gallego is saying because he could absolutely be correct that the response to this data has not been appropriate. But it's also possible that he hasn't seen all the data other members of Congress have. I don't know how it works. Is his committee getting as much of a substantial briefing as other committees? I really don't know. That said, yeah, I mean, it's always better to have more data. And maybe, maybe he is the minority rational mind surrounding this whole situation. That's a possibility that I would not rule out by any stretch. So shortly after Gallego made those statements on Rising, a comic was made about me, which is kind of interesting, by a guy named Joe on Twitter, as you can see. And it features Representative Gallego and also me, quote unquote, my nickname that people have given me, UFO Jesus. So I'm going to read it to you. Heretic, UFO Twitter, the UFO podcast circuit by Joe. United States Representative Ruben Gallego, Chairman of Intelligence and Special Operations. For some reason, UFOs fall under my jurisdiction. The information the DoD has is all useless. It's all anecdotal. Even the film, we have no reference points. It's really unfair, I think, for the NASA administrator to speculate that it is otherworldly objects or aliens because the data doesn't prove anything like that. Later on UFO Twitter, then this is me talking. Disinfo agent Ruben Gallego has totally disregarded the mountains of evidence supplied by anonymous sources and the words of our Lord and Savior, Luis Elizondo. We must make a sacrifice to the great Dino Beaver as an atonement for his heretical words. And I respond to his comic and say, I absolutely love what Representative Gallego has recently stated, which I'll highlight in my next video. I want clarity from the government, one way or the other. Unfortunately, him and maybe Rand Paul are the only ones I've seen downplay the UFO enigma from Congress. Here's a clip from March 4th, 2021, in which Senator Rand Paul speaks negatively about the money that has been used to study UAP back in around 2008 when OSAP was initiated.
There was $22 million put in a secret DoD program to investigate UFO sightings. This was one of Senator Reid's passions. I don't think we have to go further into the discussion of whether or not that's a good use of taxpayer money.
To be more accurate, instead of saying that Rand Paul has a conservative approach to the UAP issue, this clip actually gives me the impression that he was just making fun of the reality that $22 million went into a program called OSAP back in 2008 to study UAP. I have zero idea whether or not Rand Paul has even been briefed on UAP. Nevertheless, as far as I know, there have only been 2 representatives from Congress that have really poo-pooed on any level this enigma. All the other ones, as far as I can tell, have given it a great amount of credibility, either saying that it's not from the hands of man, or just saying that because of the capabilities, it very well may not be from the hands of man. And I want to go back to the comment Gallego made, where he stated that it was irresponsible for the administrator of NASA, Bill Nelson, to speculate on some UAP originating from extraterrestrial sources because, quote unquote, right now, the data doesn't prove anything like that. And ultimately, that's actually a fact, as far as I can tell. Simply because if indeed our sensor systems are collecting data on machines that are more advanced than adversaries and more advanced than anything we have, that are flying around in our skies and traversing our oceans, that in and of itself would not prove they're from an extraterrestrial source. It would just demonstrate that it's likely not coming from an adversary and we don't know where it comes from. In getting close to closing out this video, I want to share a great quote from a recent Popular Mechanics article that was published on November 16, 2021 by Kyle Mizokami, titled, or Mizokami, "The U.S. might get its own UFO investigation office." Quote, "The new process would overshadow any previous investigative programs such as Project Blue Book and would leverage the full resources and capabilities of the U.S. military and intelligence community in a way that hasn't been done before," Nick Pope says. That's who's being quoted. "The establishment of an advisory committee with a civilian component would bring unprecedented oversight and accountability. The UFO phenomenon isn't a partisan issue." The Gillibrand Amendment for the establishment of a new UFO office in the DoD with broad responsibilities and capabilities now has several co-sponsors, Gillibrand, of course, being the main sponsor, comprising of Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham, Roy Blunt, as well as Martin Heinrich. And Kirsten Gillibrand, the main sponsor, has said that she has seen no opposition whatsoever for this amendment getting passed and being part of the bill. So I feel cautiously optimistic that this will be a new reality in the United States government very soon. And interestingly, journalist Jazz Shaw has stated that he thinks at least $1 billion in funding is going to go into this new office. And I recollect he said potentially even $3 or $4 billion. So this is quite a big deal. Recently, John Greenwald of the Black Vault, through Freedom of Information Act, acquired an unclassified internal document called a briefing card. This briefing card is a series of questions and answers used to assist public affairs officers, spokespeople, and those speaking on behalf of agencies to properly answer questions that are given to them. And ever since I saw this briefing card, I've been scratching my head at one of the question and answers. Let's dig in. Questions and answers. Question: has the department found any evidence of extraterrestrial technology? Answer: the examinations into incursions by UAP are still ongoing. The department does not comment on intelligence matters. This provided answer within the briefing card dumbfounds me, because here was a perfect opportunity for the Department of Defense, through its influence, to throw cold water on a lot of the conspiratorial talk that is ensuing these days, that the U.S. government has a lot more information on UAP than they're revealing, and that information leads to a non-human intelligence hypothesis. And yet, having that opportunity to throw cold water in their grasp, they chose not to. Why? What would they have lost? What would have been the downside for them to have given an explicit answer saying, no, we do not have any evidence pointing to an extraterrestrial source from any of the UAP we've encountered? I just don't get it. I just don't understand why no cold water by the U.S. government has been thrown on what has been occurring for the past 40 years. But yet, prior to December 16th, 2017, the New York Times article, they have thrown a lot of cold water on speculation or conspiratorial theories or ideas associated with the U.S. government regarding UAP being from non-human intelligence. Now, I'm not going to make any bones about it. I think that's the right expression. The truth of the matter is, my number one hypothesis is that they do have that kind of forensic evidence that establishes that whatever our pilots are seeing and what people have been seeing for decades, civilians and airline pilots and what have you, that they have evidence that some of these things are actually exotic and do not stem from a human source. And some people think, oh, you just believe everything Elizondo says. And it's like, no, absolutely not. I would never isolate one person's testimony and say, that's the truth, baby. No, the thing about it is Elizondo is nothing new. We've had former government officials come out for decades telling us this is real, including government documents that have been acquired through the Freedom of Information Act. And we have a whole literature of these encounters that form a consistent pattern on many levels and in many ways. So when I made that prediction in the beginning, in which this whole video is centered around, that the U.S. government will never throw cold water or make a proclamation like they have in the past regarding UAP, saying, hey, we don't got any evidence that UAP are, for example, technology surpassing known understanding of science, or that there's any indication there from an extraterrestrial source. They're never going to do that again, even though there's a precedence for the United States government doing exactly and explicitly that. And you know what? I would love to be proven wrong. I would love to be proven wrong. I would love for the United States government tomorrow to come out and say, you know what? The Navy aviators and the radar technicians, their testimony is interesting. All of the statements by the Congress is interesting. The statements by former President Barack Obama are interesting. But we're the ones with the data. And we can tell you right now, as the ones with the data, that we don't have the kind of data justifying what all these people are saying. Because if the U.S. government did that, I would feel like they took a stance. And I would feel like they're either crazy because they're lying, and to lie at this juncture would be very foolish, and there'd be an enormous amount of blowback if that lie ever got corrected, which it ultimately would if it actually was a lie. Or alternatively, they're telling the truth, and there's no forensic scientific data to back up the sentiments of people like Lou Elizondo or David Fravor or even Barack Obama. And so that would also be a possibility. My perspective right now is there's a debate going on within the intelligence community. And they're debating how to bring this out to the public. Now some of the people within the intelligence community are like, nope, never. We're never going to broach this phenomenon to the public. It will always stay classified. There's other people within the intelligence community who have the persuasion of, we really need to come clean, because this kind of lie is not like fine wine. It's more like vegetables in your refrigerator, and the longer you withhold this information, the worse it's going to get. And yet, even within that camp, there are debates about the best way of going about this. And I understand the complexity of the situation, because once this comes out, if it does, and I'm not wrong, which of course I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Once this comes out and we have the paradigm shift and it becomes understood throughout the world that we're simply not alone and we're being engaged by something that's intelligently controlling technology that is not part of the human family, that is going to, of course, make some waves. and that's going to be disruptive. So the intelligence community is those that are in favor of transparency are probably debating right now what is the most intelligent and least disruptive way to do it. And I don't know how much control each faction has, how clean or messy it is. I don't know. I'm not in the intelligence community. But if we are just to take a look at what's happened over the past 4 years, it comes off as like a drip, 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 and yet it continues to escalate. How much of that is design? How much of that is happenstance? I have no idea. I have no idea. Maybe someday we'll find out. Maybe we'll never find out. But ultimately, I think this is all heading toward what is colloquially called disclosure, which just means the U.S. government and other governments finally become transparent on the forensic data they've collected over many years, demonstrating clearly and unambiguously that we are not alone in the universe and that there is technology from somewhere, from someone, that is engaging our planet. And with that, I'm going to call it an evening. Thank you so much for going on this journey with me. I feel like this is something we're partaking together because no one actually knows where this is heading. We are all just essentially giving our analysis based on incomplete information, and no one can prove, as a matter of fact, where this is heading. And so I may be proven right, I may be proven wrong, but you know what? Ultimately, we're on this roller coaster ride together, and I think it's a special time, a really special time. Please do not forget to subscribe. And if you'd like to support this channel, you can check out my merch shop. You can become a patron. You can become a YouTube member. You can give me a one-time donation, and of course, all of those links are in the description below, or you could just slap a like on this bad boy, and I'll appreciate it so much. And of course, before you go, how about leaving the word in the description below, cat. That way I know you've watched the whole way through, and I can feel particularly joyous knowing that you actually watched all of this content, and I appreciate that. And I look forward to seeing you, cat. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Special thanks to all YouTube members, all patrons, all those who've bought merch, all those who've given me a one-time donation, and all those who've watched this whole show the whole way through. I couldn't do it without